It's April 22nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the death of Pope Francis. People around the world are mourning the late pontiff, who died of a stroke and subsequent irreversible heart failure, according to the Vatican. He will be buried in Rome's Basilica of St. Mary Major as he requested. U.S. stocks plunged on Monday as U.S. President Donald Trump continues to put pressure on Fed Chair Jerome Powell to lower interest rates, with Trump calling Powell a major loser. Former Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung vows to boost stock markets, while the party's two other candidates, Kim Kyung-soo and Kim Dong-yeon, make promises of income security and gender equality respectively. The People Power Party will announce 4 contenders, who will proceed to the second round of primaries on Tuesday night. Pope Francis died on Easter Monday at the age of 88 from a stroke and heart failure. Cathedral bells rang out 88 times in honor of the beloved Pope, with people around the world making their way to the Vatican to remember him. An Sung-jin has more.
Bells tolled in St. Peter's Square, mourning the death of Pope Francis. The Vatican said that at 7:35 a.m. on Monday local time, the Pope died at 88 years old from a stroke and heart failure. Though he had been hospitalized for 38 days battling pneumonia in the winter, he had delivered an Easter blessing on Sunday morning, the day before his death.
It's just a very sad day. It's honestly, I think, impressive that he made it to Easter. I think that's almost like a miracle for Italy.
He has been doing a great pastoral work, reaching out to his sheep, and, well, now the Lord is calling him to rest in peace after the great work he has done. We are left to pray for him.
In his will, he asked to be buried in a simple tomb in the ground at Rome's Basilica of St. Mary Major, with a one-word inscription Franciscus, his name in Latin. That will make him the first pope in more than a century to be buried outside the Vatican. Pope Francis is history's first Latin American pope and the first Jesuit pope. He was also the first to allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. As an advocate of peace, he strived for a peaceful outcome in the Ukraine war and called for a Gaza ceasefire. Pope Francis had also visited South Korea in 2014 to pray for the war-divided peninsula and the families of those who died in the Seoul ferry disaster. World leaders have also spoken about the death of the pontiff. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called Pope Francis a messenger of hope, humility, and humanity, who leaves behind a legacy of faith, service, and compassion. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to put all flags of the country at half-mast, while Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences. A new pontiff will be elected after Catholics begin the 9 days of funeral rites. The centuries-old ritual of the conclave procedures began as cardinals come to Rome to participate in the funeral mass. Following closed meetings, the cardinals will vote to choose the next pontiff. Some say that the Vatican may see their first African or Asian pope, though it is hard to predict the highly secretive papal conclave. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Wall Street saw a rough start to the week, with U.S. stocks sliding for a 4th consecutive session on Monday. Now, the major losses come as U.S. President Donald Trump picked on Fed Chair Jerome Powell yet again for not lowering interest rates. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Wall Street stumbled to a close on the week's first trading session on Monday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 971.82 points, or 2.48%, to close at 38,170.41. The S&P 500 shed 2.36%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 2.55% to settle at 15,870.90. The so-called Magnificent Seven tech giants all dragged the major indexes lower, with Tesla losing 5.8%, while Nvidia shed more than 4%. Wall Street saw U.S. stocks tumble and bonds sold off as U.S. President Donald Trump threw fresh criticism toward U.S. Fed Chair Jerome Powell on Monday, pressuring him to cut interest rates. Taken to social media, Trump said the economy would slow unless Powell, who he called Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates immediately. Trump had previously called for the U.S. Fed to lower rates, even hinting at Powell's possible termination. The lack of progress on global trade after Trump announced his reciprocal tariffs earlier this month has also dented investor confidence. Since Trump's announcement on April 2nd, the S&P 500 is down 9%, and both the Nasdaq and Dow Jones fell nearly 10%. 이승재, Arirang News.
South Korea's finance minister Choi Sang-mok is off to the U.S. today to attend this first round of high-level trade negotiations with the Trump administration, with a lot on his shoulders to draw out a breakthrough for his country. We turn to Professor Shin Se-don for more. Good morning.
Good morning.
Professor Shin, should we not be surprised to see Trump attend the discussions? I mean, how likely Trump will show up at the meeting this week?
Well, you know, looking at China's kind of callous reaction to U.S. Tariff policy, I think for the Trump administration, Japan and Korea should be the two most favorable kind of and cooperative, country towards the United States. So I think President Trump is expecting a great deal of interest in the cooperation from Japan as well as Korea. So I think he would probably show up at the meeting, but even if he does not show up, I think Korea is going to be the most friendly and cooperative countries towards the United States. That I think is pretty sure.
It's also good to hear that the U.S. is favoring countries like South Korea and Japan for now. But what do you think the U.S. side will seek to get out of the meeting this time? I mean, what will be they asking for or even demanding?
Yeah, I mean, prime goal of tariff policy of the Trump administration is trying to reduce trade deficit. Mm-hmm. And Japan and Korea has been number 5, number 6 trade surplus country against the United States. So a prime goal of everything, reciprocal tariff and those kind of tariff policies is against trade deficit. So I think if Korean government suggests a certain kind of procedures to reduce the trade deficits against the United States, I think there's a pretty good probability that two governments come up with the kind of a positive negotiations.
Well, one thing is dealing with a trade deficit, but another thing is Trump's attempt to deal with trade and defense in a one-shot, package, one-shot deal. How should South Korea respond to Trump's such attempt?
Well, we've been paying about, $100 million annual defense expenditure, and there has been rumor that President Trump is asking $1 billion. But, several $100 billion is not a big deal considering the size of, bilateral trade between the United States and Korea, which is about $200 billion. So I think, a few $100 million negotiation is not a big deal. I mean, United States is not kind of concerned about defense expenditure. Rather, they wanted to reduce the trade deficits of Korea against the United States, which is about which is about $60 billion. So I think Korea has to come up with kind of measures to gradually reduce 70 billion trade surplus against the United States. I think that is possible.
Well, South Korea is trying to separate the two matters, trade and defense. But what will be the best outcome for the South Korean side this time to bring home from this Swiss meeting in Washington, D.C.?
Well, regarding, about the defense expenditures, I think two government has to wait until Korean new administration after June. So deferring that kind of a defense negotiations to the next administration. And the first and the foremost, kind of a topic is to reduce U.S. trade deficit against Korea, which is about $70 billion. And the Korean government could promise reducing that trade surplus at least $5 billion a year for next 5 years. Then I think that we could reduce the $70 billion trade surplus towards the United States to probably 30 billion or 20 billion, down the road to 5 years from now.
Or maybe it should be a rather, warm-up period until we do welcome a new administration. Now, the meeting this week will mark a first such round of tariff talks between South Korea and the U.S., and it could take multiple rounds of talks over the course of next weeks or even months. Professor Shin, what kind of strategy should the South Korean team have in mind during this, battle?
Well, we have plenty of, Korean government has plenty of leverage. First, we could reduce, our trade surplus against the United States by importing more goods from the United States. And another kind of leverage is Korean public funds like Korean investment funds and national pension funds have a huge kind of resources to invest in a foreign country. And we could reduce, we could kind of move a certain portion of our national resources to invest in a U.S. Treasury bills. That is a second leverage. And also we have, we have a new administration coming after June. So we could have certain kind of time dealing until new governments, established after June. So Korean government now has plenty of, leverages to make a deal with the United States.
Maybe that's why the finance minister, Choi Sang-mok, who left early this morning, said that he is not going to rush through the negotiations. Professor Shin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As always, we appreciate it.
My pleasure.
But in the meantime, Trump's merciless tariffs are already being reflected in South Korea's exports to the U.S. Outbound shipments in the first 20 days of April dropped over 14%. Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
South Korea's exports declined during the first 20 days of April, reflecting an early impact of the U.S. administration's tariffs on global trade. According to the Korea Customs Service on Monday, outbound shipments stood at $33.9 billion during this period, down 5.2% from the previous year. This despite the number of working days during the period being the same as last year. The drop in exports comes as shipments to the U.S. showed a notable drop of 14.3% year-on-year, which the agency attributed to the tariffs. The U.S. set a 25% reciprocal tariff rate on South Korea, but President Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on its implementation earlier this month for most nations. This means that as of now for Korea, a base tariff rate of 10% is in place, along with 25% tariffs on specific items, namely automobiles, steel, and aluminum. But with these tariffs already contributing to more than 5% year-on-year decline in exports during the first 20 days of April, concern is growing over a sharper downturn once the 90-day pause expires.
During the 90-day pause, there's uncertainty on two fronts: how the U.S. will proceed and what kind of negotiations with South Korea will take place. But with base tariffs of 10% already in effect since April 6th, export figures aren't expected to improve anytime soon.
Shipments of 9 of the country's top 10 export items, including automobiles and oil products, all saw declines, while only chip exports rose. But it's unclear whether shipments of semiconductors will remain strong, with Trump expected to announce chip tariffs sometime this week.
But the tariffs will be in place in the not-distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips.
The same expert said that because uncertainty is a key factor in the upcoming trade talks with the U.S., South Korea should not rush to conclude negotiations, but instead focus on understanding Washington's intentions and demands. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The race for the presidential primaries of both the Democratic Party and the People Power Party is heating up, with the DP set to announce the party's presidential contender for the early election on Sunday. In fact, the PPP will narrow its candidates down to 4 tonight. Kim Do-yeon reports.
As the Democratic Party of Korea's frontrunner Lee Jae-myung strengthens his dominance in the party's presidential primary, with around 90% of the cumulative votes so far, he now looks beyond the primaries and eyes the undecided voters for the actual presidential race. On Monday, he visited the Korea Financial Investment Association and discussed the stock exchange. He pledged to surpass 5,000 points in the stock market through various measures, around double of what it's at today. Meanwhile, the current runner-up, Kim Dong-yeon, has pledged to turn the primary around, saying having a clear frontrunner is not good for the party overall. The party will announce the results of its primaries in the Jeollado provinces on Saturday and those for the Seoul metropolitan area alongside Gangwon-do province and Jeju on Sunday. Public polls accounting for 50% of the total will be held for 2 days between April 21st and 27th, with the final candidate confirmed on April 27th. Meanwhile, after 2 days of heated debates, the open poll for the first round cutoff for the People Power Party primary started on Monday, with 4 of 8 to be cut. This is a 100% open opinion survey where both PPP and undecided supporters will be surveyed. And to boost their chances, 3 contestants traveled to Daegu and Gyeongsangbuk-do province on Monday, a region known as a conservative stronghold. Han Dong-un went to Gyeongju City to visit the preparations for this year's APEC summit. Na Kyung-won and An Cheol-soo also visited Daegu to meet with supporters there. Kim Mun-soo, who has a slight lead among the 8 contestants according to recent polls, pledged to expand rapid train lines across the nation, while Hong Jun-pyo shared his vision for welfare through a press conference. The result of the polling done on Monday and Tuesday will be released sometime on Tuesday evening. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The second criminal trial hearing of former President Yoon Suk-yeol took place on Monday, this time with footage of the former leader in the defendant's seat made public. Moon Hae-ryun tells us more.
A dark navy suit paired with a red tie. This is what former President Yoon Suk-yeol wore to the second hearing of his criminal trial on Monday. In the first footage made available to the public since his trial began, he was seen entering the courtroom and taking his seat at the defendant's bench with his lips tightly closed, ignoring the press cameras flashing around him. The media were required to leave before proceedings officially began. Previously, the court did not allow the media to film in the courtroom, explaining that the request came in too late for the appropriate judicial procedures to be followed. At today's trial, Yoon's legal team cross-examined Choi Sang-mok from the Army's Capital Defense Command, who had been summoned as a key witness by the prosecution. During the first hearing last week, Cho testified that he received a direct order from his superior to enter the National Assembly and remove lawmakers on the night of the martial law order declaration last December. Yoon's legal team questioned the feasibility of such an order before challenging the credibility of his testimony by highlighting inconsistencies between his statements across different legal proceedings. Throughout the session, the defense continued to warn Cho that false testimony could result in legal consequences and demanded that he speak accurately. The exchange escalated when Cho, frustrated by repeated questioning, appealed directly to the bench, which was acknowledged by the judge. To secure a conviction on charges of insurrection, prosecutors must prove that Yoon deliberately sought to overthrow the constitutional order by mobilizing the military. If found guilty, he could face life imprisonment or even the death penalty. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The government is aiming to pass its first supplementary budget in 3 years, totaling 12.2 trillion Korean won, or $8.4 billion. After the cabinet's approval last week, the government is expected to submit the plan to the National Assembly on Tuesday in order to implement the extra budget by early May. Aimed at responding to urgent national needs, the funds will be directed towards wildfire recovery, disaster preparedness, and boosting trade and AI competitiveness. It will also ramp up support for small businesses and vulnerable groups hit hard by recent economic shocks. Some adjustments may be made as the major Democratic Party has been calling for a supplementary budget worth $10 billion. Seoul's Minister of Foreign Affairs condemned Japan's continued tributes at the controversial Yasukuni shrine following Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's offering on Monday. In a statement released on Tuesday, the ministry expressed deep disappointment and urged Japan's leaders to confront their history with sincerity. The statement also followed a visit to the shrine by a group of Japanese lawmakers on Tuesday morning. The ministry emphasized that such actions undermine trust and hinder efforts to build a future-oriented relationship. The shrine in Tokyo commemorates those who died in Japan's past wars, including 14 convicted Class A war criminals. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on Monday that fighting has resumed after the Ukraine conflict's Easter ceasefire came to an end. According to Russia's state-run Tues, Putin met with local reporters to give the update, but added he would consider Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's proposal to halt drone and missile strikes on civilian facilities for 30 days. Putin added that during the Easter ceasefire, Ukrainian forces committed nearly 5,000 ceasefire violations. But he did note that overall enemy combat activity decreased, something he said he welcomed.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who was on a 4-day visit to India, met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi on Monday to discuss bilateral ties and trade issues amid the Trump administration's new tariff policies. During the meeting, Vance and Modi discussed progress in areas such as trade and defense, as well as plans for strengthened bilateral ties, as outlined in February when Modi met President Donald Trump at the White House. They also reviewed a bilateral trade agreement aimed at increasing trade between the two countries to $500 billion by 2030. The United States is India's largest trading partner, and their bilateral trade reached $129 billion in 2024. India seeks relief from proposed U.S. tariffs, while the U.S. encourages India to lower duties on American imports and boost purchases of U.S. defense equipment. China and Indonesia's foreign and defense ministers have met in Beijing to discuss improving mutual ties and economic collaboration. On Monday local time, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Defense Minister Dong Jun met with Indonesia's Foreign Minister Sugiono and Defense Minister Shafri Shamsuddin. Key outcomes included agreements to boost maritime security cooperation in the South China Sea, conduct joint counterterrorism exercises, and collaborate on cyber threats and transnational crimes. China also expressed a willingness to increase imports of Indonesian products. Both sides reaffirmed their commitment to free trade and promoting regional peace and stability. In Australia, 7 people drowned in New South Wales over the Easter long weekend, marking the country's deadliest holiday period on record. The victims include a 9-year-old boy who became trapped between rocks at a beach on Sunday afternoon. Surf Life Saving NSW described the weekend as absolutely horrific, attributing the incidents to a combination of warm weather, dangerous swells, and risky behavior. The group said it performed more than 150 rescues during the holiday period. Authorities urged the public to swim only at patrolled beaches and to adhere to safety warnings. At the 2025 Laureus World Sports Awards held in Madrid on Monday local time, gymnast Simone Biles and pole vaulter Mondo Duplantis were honored as Sportswomen and Sportsmen of the Year. Biles won her 4th Laureus title, matching tennis star Serena Williams' record, following her outstanding performance at the Paris Olympics, where the American earned 3 gold medals and 1 silver. Duplantis, who competes for Sweden, received his first Laureus award after winning his 2nd Olympic gold and breaking his own pole vault record twice in 2024.
Unlike the clear skies we saw yesterday, today is shaping up to be quite wet and windy nationwide. The rain that was mainly concentrated over the western parts of the country have spread to all regions this morning. And this rain will be heavy for the southern coast and Jeju, with intense downpours of 10 to 30 millimeters per hour. Jeju could see over 120 millimeters of downpours. Southern coast could see up to 80 millimeters. Central regions, including here in Seoul, are looking at 10 to 50 millimeters of rainfall. And we are also looking at heavy rain with strong winds. In fact, Jeju Island is under a strong wind and heavy rain advisories. Checking on today's highs now, Seoul will be getting up to 21 degrees. Daegu, Gyeongju, Daejeon, Gwangju will be all see a high of 20 degrees Celsius this afternoon. The rain should ease off by tomorrow morning for eastern coastal regions, but most parts of the country will see rain going away by tonight. Please stay safe and dry out there.
That is all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu. The highlight of office life. Lunchtime. Rice in the bottom left, soup in the bottom right. The top is for the sides. The sauce and the spoon go here. This is the basic layout, but it's a bit odd to switch rice and soup. When you're done, pour the leftovers into the soup bowl. It doesn't look that appetizing, so wait until others are done eating. Step 2. Neng, nep, nenep. These are the most used expressions at work. Choose the most appropriate form. Neng, nep, nenep. Remember that the formal ne can sound a bit stiff. Did you just say yes? Absolutely not acceptable. You want to find the right word for the right occasion. Step 3. Desteria. Desteria is the oasis in the desert. Show them your character. If you're not the diligent type, get a stooky plant. Work is tough. Laugh and the whole world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. Stay put, like the stooky that survives in the desert. Hang in there until the end. Of course, you can always quit. You matter more than anything else. Step 4. Survival kit. Every worker needs a survival kit. Survival kit level 1. This position gets the most exposure. Grab one when you need a sugar boost. Always keep a few treats you can offer your co-workers. Survival kit level 2. These are for hunger pangs before and after a meal. You'll need them when you take a coffee break with your office buddies. Survival kit level 3. Trash talking your boss with your soulmate. Did you survive in the workplace? Office romance? Be careful. Even the photocopier knows all the gossip.
We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, April 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're tuning into News Generation. Joining us today is Kwon Jian.
Good morning, Jin.
Good morning, Jian, and Kang Min-ju.
Thanks for having me today.
Happy Tuesday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, Tuesday is when we dive into what's buzzing on Korea's cultural front. Take a look at the screen to find out more about today's topic. There's one topic that never gets old on NewsGen, and that's love. We've been covering everything from dating to marriage trends and the low birth rate in Korea. But today, we're turning the spotlight to couples who've said, I do. What's marriage looking like for Korea's younger generations? So we're bringing this familiar topic to the show once again today because there's actually been some good news, which is marriages are on the rise here in Korea. So Jian, what do the latest numbers tell us about marriage trends?
Yes, so how many people get married? I'll give you some numbers here. According to Statistics Korea, 220,000 couples tied the knot in Korea last year, which is the highest number in 5 years since 2019 when it reached 239,000. That's an increase of about 28,000 from the previous year. The year-on-year growth rate hit 14.8%, the largest jump since national marriage statistics began in 1970. In fact, Korea's crude marriage rate, which is the number of marriages per 1,000 people, this had been declining every year since 2014. But this year, it rose for the first time, so it's quite an incredible figure. So more couples are clearly choosing to say, I do, again.
This is especially exciting news given the fact that we have been seeing less marriages and naturally low birth rate has been a really big concern here in Korea.
Good news, indeed, yes.
Right, and another trend we're noticing in this report and statistics is that more couples are tying the knot later in life, especially compared to previous generations. So wouldn't you please break us down on the stats on that?
Yeah, of course. So the average age for the first-time marriages in South Korea is 33.9 for men and 31.6 for women. So percentage-wise, 39.1% of men and 37.9% of women marry in their early 30s, making this age group the prime age for both genders to tie the knot. So interesting fact is that the proportion of couples where the woman is older than men has been reached its highest point since this kind of statistics has been recorded in 1990, accounting for 99.9%, approximately 20% of all first-time marriages.
And this is quite a very different trend than what we've seen in the past, because in the past we've seen a lot of people getting married in their 20s, and also it was mostly men who were older than women.
Yeah, exactly.
But now the trend is reversing. And besides this, Jian, were there any other parts of the statistics that really caught your attention? You found it new?
Well, when it comes to love, there are no borders. I'm talking about international marriage. Well, Korea is seeing a growing number of international marriages. Last year, there were 21,000 marriages between Koreans and foreign nationals, a 5.3% increase from the year before. In particular, well, marriages between Korean men and Japanese women saw a notable rise. Last year, in 2024, there were 1,176 such cases, up 40% from 840 cases in the previous year. Korean men mostly married women from Vietnam, China, Thailand, and Japan, while Korean women were more likely to marry men from the United States, China, and Vietnam. So borders may divide nations, but not their hearts and love.
Right, so an increase in international marriages is another noticeable shift we're seeing in terms of marriage trends here in Korea. So once again, Korea has long been sounding the alarm over declining marriage and birth rates, so this uptick is definitely great news for the country. But I want to ask our panelists, what could be behind this rebound in marriage numbers?
Well, that would be a good question, but rebound in marriage numbers could be, there will be many elements for that because of the low birth rate. The government is actually implementing lots of policies, and they do have them strategies for the people.
And what could be some other reasons, Moon?
Yeah, so according to the National Statistics Office, one of the major factors is that the echo boom generation, which is the children of the baby boomers, the first baby boomers, has now reached the prime age for their marriages. So this generation has a higher annual birth rate of around 690,000 to 730,000, which is significantly larger compared to the preceding and the succeeding generations. And so as the pie itself grows, the marriage rates have also increased just naturally. And additionally, the National Statistics Office also noted that while the number of marriages hit a record low during the COVID-19 pandemic, recent data shows a rebound, indicating that the effects of endemic transition may still be playing its role in the marriage rates.
Because during the COVID pandemic, we saw a lot of couples delaying and pushing back their marriages. So now might be the best time they are tying their knot.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right, but however, despite a growing number of marriages, a lot of young people are staying single. So, Jiyeon, please share data on that, and let's also talk about what might be holding these young people from tying the knot, actually.
Well, as of 2023, 51% of people in their 30s in Korea were unmarried. That's nearly 4 times higher than in the year 2000. The biggest reason people are avoiding marriage is financial pressure, financial reasons. Well, in Korea, it's common to buy a newlywed home when getting married. But with rising housing prices, marriage is now often seen as a commitment that comes with a heavy financial burden.
With a big price tag.
That's right, financial pressure for all of the people. So for many, it's no longer a fairy tale story, fairy tale ending for them. It's a financial beginning for lots of people.
And it's not just housing, because when we look at the overall process until you do your wedding ceremony, it costs a lot. The dress and the photo shoots and the wedding venue.
Everything is money.
Everything is money. Everything comes with a hefty price tag. What do you think, Moonju?
Yeah, financial burden is definitely the one. But in addition to that one, a growing aversion to remnants of patriarchy in South Korea and an increased emphasis on personal happiness have emerged as key reasons for choosing not to marry among young generations. So members of the MZ generation, for instance, often celebrate their individuality by holding non-marriage ceremonies, by wearing dresses and having photo shoots individually. So reflecting this culture shift, in fact, some companies are now providing some non-marriage allowances to promote some fairness with those who are getting married and receiving traditional monetary gifts or blessing monies, which you can only receive when holding a wedding ceremony. So I think that's kind of culture shift that we are experiencing these days, yeah.
So it's not just growing financial burden, but also a change in perception, because in the past it was considered quite uncommon to not get married here in Korea, but nowadays many people are thinking that marriage is optional.
Yeah, of course. I think there are more than that we are thinking right now, yeah.
Right, all right. So we also reached out to our viewers to get their take on this issue. We asked, by what age would you ideally want to get married? We gave them 4 options: 20s, 30s, 40s, or I'm not planning to get married. The most popular choice was in my 30s, with 50% of our viewers choosing this option. Next was I prefer not to get married, with 21%, and that was followed by in my 20s with 18% and in my 40s with 12%. And we're going to take a look at some of our viewers' personal responses. Our first comment for this Tuesday is by Benny D97. I want to get married in my 30s because it's a good time to enter a new phase of life with strong motivation and with that special someone. Nest or Portuguese 8964 says, I already feel like I'm getting married as I am 22 years old, but nobody trusts me. Endless Curiosity 95, marriage comes with so many responsibilities. It's nice to stay single and just date. So we've taken the diverse opinions from our viewers. Now, to dig deeper into the thoughts and concerns of our generation regarding marriage, we'll soon be joined by a young Korean guest right after the break. Don't go away.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
We're pleased to welcome Korean millennial Kang Kyung-dong to our show today. Welcome back to the show, Kyung-dong.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Kyung-dong, we'd first like to ask you, do you see yourself getting married someday? Why or why not?
I think I will definitely get married in the future. I can create emotional connection. You guys know humans are wired for connection. Marriage can give a sense of having someone to rely on during hard times, not facing life alone, emotionally or practically. Having someone to share emotions and life with means a lot. Someone who shares your happiness on good days, and someone who can be by your side without saying a word on tough days. This kind of process makes our life less lonely and much warmer. I want my life companion to make plans, share dreams, routines, and memories, and navigate challenges as a team. So we can spend every moment when we're happy or not, and overcome a lot of difficulties we get in our daily life. Marriage is also tied to creating a stable home environment for future children. I wish to have a child who resembles me and start a family. I'm pretty sure most Koreans would agree with this point. Therefore, I think marriage is not about meeting perfect people, but the courage to carry imperfections together. This is why I want to get married in the future.
I like the point that imperfection to perfection. Well, Kyung-dong, everyone seems to have their own list of what needs to be in place before tying the knot, whether it's their job, career, savings, or finding the right person, their Mr. Right, or your significant other. Do you have any personal priorities before getting married?
I can say there are 3 reasons for that question. The first one is emotional maturity. I would want both of us to be able to, for example, take responsibility for our own baggage, apologize when we're wrong, stay when it's hard, not just when it's fun. It's not about being perfect, as I mentioned. It's about being aware and willing to grow. The second one is shared financial transparency. Money doesn't need to be perfect, but we should be honest about debts, habits, and goals. We should respect each other's approach to spending and saving. Based on this trust, it can lead to greater transparency for the future spending. The last one is live the experience together. Before marriage, I want to have seen each other in hard seasons, for example, when we get stress, grief, boredom, laugh together, cry together, maybe even argued a little and learn from it. Because love isn't just proven in the good moments, it can be revealed when we feel emotionally unwell.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And our last question for you today is on more of like a broader note. Do you think marriage these days is necessary, or do you think it's more of an optional in today's world?
Well, I can say marriage is becoming a choice, not a default. Historically, marriage was more about survival and structure. In many cultures, marriage was related to economic security, family alliances, inheritance, and gender roles. It was often a social contract more than a romantic decision, especially for women who were historically limited in autonomy without the marriage. But today, people have more options and freedom. Financial independence means we don't have to marry to live securely. And cohabitation, long-term dating, or being single are more accepted and common these days. Also, career priorities and self-development is considered as an important factors as well. Legal rights like inheritance, joint ownership, or child custody are more flexible, but I guess this reason varies by country. However, for some societies, marriage still matters because of cultural or religious importance, legal benefits, and social recognition. Therefore, marriage is not essential, as I mentioned before. I believe that we can definitely live a wonderful life being alone or with friends or in a different way. Thank you for listening.
Couldn't agree more. All right, Kyung-dong, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we mentioned at the top of our broadcast, for our parents and grandparents' generation, marriage was considered a rite of passage, a box that you should definitely tick on once you hit a certain age here in Korea. But today, many see it as a personal choice, not a social obligation. As our guest Kyung-do mentioned, it seems more like a choice than a default. So wrapping up our discussion today, we're going to hear from our panelists, starting with you, Juyeon. You are married, you currently have kids. What do you think are the pros and cons of saying I do and choosing to stay single?
It's quite embarrassing to say that, well, but I think I reckon marriage is one of those life experiences that's worth having it. If the timing feels right and the opportunity comes to you. I was perfectly happy on my own. I was happy with being single. I really was, but being with him, with my significant other, made the ordinary feel a little more special. I'm still shy to say this right now. But,
hope he's watching right now.
I'm not sure, but and another joy of marriage, becoming a family. I mean, having a child, not just a couple. Having a child change everything in the most beautiful way. Well, there was a lot of mess indeed, but I'm talking about the laughter at breakfast, tiny hands in your stories before bed, and of course, it's not always easy. They ask you a lot of questions, you know. However, sharing everyday life with someone that you care, that's what matters. It's loud, but it's lovely. And I wonder, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So still debating, I do might be the answer.
Wow. And I've heard that a lot of people say getting married and having kids kind of opens up a completely new chapter of your life. So
having a new journey, new chapter.
You'd say it's a happy journey.
Yes.
All right.
You've got to do it, you know.
You've got to do it. Then Moonja, I think you'll be able to give us another perspective because you're currently single. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, as a person who hasn't already opened a new chapter yet, and as...
But are you willing to in the future?
Hopefully. I'm willing to. So as someone who is currently both unmarried and single, I believe being too preoccupied with living in present and having too hectic life is like the biggest barrier these days. So as Juyeon mentioned, for a marriage to happen, right timing and right person should precede to marry someone. But I think in my case, my perspective, I think I'm navigating too much, through this intense daily routine, having very little time to start a new relationship. And also these days, I think it's challenging to consider marriage, especially if you're single. It is very hard to meet someone at work, and it's quite rare. Yeah, very less opportunities. And unless you've been seeing someone since your academic years and maintaining a long relationship, I think it's kind of very challenging for young generations to start a new relationship these days. And also, there are some advantages of staying solo or single.
Please tell us.
I mean, I've been used to this single life so long that I'm very hesitant to break out from, because I'm enjoying my personal freedom, and also I only need to care for myself, right? So I think that's the advantage. However, after hearing from Juyeon,
are you jealous?
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm very jealous of her. I do feel that marrying could add so much value and insights to my life. So hopefully, I can marry in the long future.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
Hopefully, you will be able to find the love of your life really soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Please.
Hopefully. And that's all we have for this edition of News Generation, but we will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Kwon Ji-yeon.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And Kang Moon-ju.
Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for spending time with us, and hope you tune in tomorrow, Wednesday, as well. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Cafes. Step 1. Find a seat. Before ordering, find a seat. Laptop, ID, smartphone, jacket, whatever that can mark your territory. But no bites. It's a little too big. Step 2. Pick up. We do not ask or call your name. We call out, B69번 고객님. The buzzer will vibrate when your order is ready at the counter. Wait, got your straw? Keep the top of the wrapper on. Doing this is more hygienic. Step 3. Cafe etiquette. If you need to use your laptop, find a seat next to a socket. No extra charge for using electricity. But if you're staying over 3 hours, how about ordering another drink or dessert? Step 4. Last bite standing. There's a mysterious custom in Korea. The last bite standing. When there's about 1 bite left of that cake, nobody will go for it. You might be tempted, but don't be hasty. Right before you get up, take the last piece saying that you simply can't waste food, or just leave it. It will save a few calories. Did you survive at the cafe? Did someone behind the counter catch your eye? Go for the same drink every single day.
오늘도 아이스 말차 라떼 드실 거죠?
You might make an impression.
저는 만 5살에 바이올린을 시작했는데요. 바이올린 소리를 워낙 좋아했어서 그 특유의 따뜻함과 약간 사람의 목소리 같은 목소리를 갖고 있거든요, 바이올린이. 저는 무대에 올랐을 때보다는 이제 혼자 연습할 때 더 큰 희열을 느끼는데 제가 표현하고자 하는 음악이 잘 나왔을 때 그때 가장 큰 기쁨을 느끼는 것 같아요. 그래서 저만의 색깔을 어떻게 하면 찾아갈 수 있을까 그걸 제일 많이 고민하는 것 같아요. 아무래도 연습을 할 때는 이제 생각과 고민을 많이 하는 반면에 무대에서 연주할 때는 정말 머릿속을 비우고 아무 생각도 안 하려고 하는 것 같아요. 무대에서는 자유롭게 콩쿨 무대도 저만의 독주라고 생각하는 자세를 가지려고 하고 있어요. 사실 바이올린과는 거의 제 인생의 대부분을 같이 해왔기 때문에 저를 힘들게 할 때도 많지만 제가 가장 사랑하고 아끼는 존재입니다. 작곡가가 전달하고 싶은 메시지와 또 제 자신이 관객들에게 전달하고 싶은 메시지를 모두 다 설득력 있게 잘 전달할 수 있는 그런 연주자가 되고 싶습니다.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
지나간 그